Hello, everybody. This is Gail Kraft here from the Empowering Process podcast. Thank you for joining us today. I have with me a really miraculous woman, and her name is Heather Eck, E-C-K. I hope I said that correctly. And she is the owner of Heather Eck Artist, LLC. We're going to have a very interesting conversation. She went from HR to art, and I say using her heart. So you entered art using your heart. Isn't that fantastic? If I don't say so myself. What is
I love it.
What's very interesting is that Heather sees colors. She doesn't see the world the way that I see the world. I don't know how you see the world, but certainly not the way that I see the world. And she was able to turn that experience into a creative, intuitive, artistic business through painting. So this is going to be quite the conversation. Heather, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Gail. It's so nice to see you. I'm happy to be here today.
It's going to be great. So I'm not even going to try and say your condition.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start with that, and then let's talk about your childhood, how you became an HR manager, and then how you and why you switched to what you're doing now. I mean, look at the background there, guys. All of these paints, I love it.
I am in my studio. It's one of my favorite places to be. So I have something called synesthesia, which is it's sort of described as when your senses get crossed. So for me, if I smell something or I'm eating something or listening to music or painting, I am seeing colors in my mind's eye or shapes or symbols, or I'm just kind of seeing what's happening with as I'm taking information in. And this is something that has been with me since I was a little kid. I just didn't have the vocabulary for it until very recently. And then kind of said, oh, not everybody has this. I think I sort of took for granted that that experience was unique to me. I didn't know.
No, and we
And
don't
it's about
know.
4% of the population.
Oh, go ahead, 4%.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, because you
Yeah.
froze. So
Very. Oh no. Oh.
and you just froze again. So I hope this recording comes out okay. Yeah. So
Oh, me too.
so every once in a while I will
Okay.
pop in because
Hopefully
you froze.
it's good. I don't have that on anywhere else, so hopefully it'll clear up.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm just going to step in here for a
Okay.
second and say that I know people who are trying to learn to see the world the way that you naturally see it, because that is how they are connecting to what I call the universe and others call God. So
Hmm.
what society calls an affliction, I call a gift.
Yep.
Right? So thankfully you didn't realize that this was unique as a child, because then you would have been put in special ed or something, right?
Yeah.
Right? And you drank the Kool-Aid and into corporate and,
Hmm.
and into HR, something so not creative. So talk
Oh
about
my gosh.
that experience.
Yeah, I did. I went into HR, I think because at the time I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I had changed my major multiple times, but I left college with a degree in interdisciplinary studies and a minor in art. So art was still sort of like hanging out in the background a little bit. I found myself in human resources after many years of corporate banking and consulting. And so literally stripped myself of all creativity that was possible. But when I went into HR, it was in creative spaces. It was with an advertising agency and then a video game company. So I was surrounded by creatives, which was kind of what we call a cheat, right? It was like I was kind of cheating my way into that space because I was looking for that creative outlet. But I thought I could only find it through the career that way. But I was also learning how to care for people in a different way. I was sort of the person that I was like the safe office. I had my salt lamp, I had my crystals, I would kind of set intentions for the day. So people would come to my office and just sit and chat. And so I was learning sort of how to care for them there and to offer them something different than what they would typically get from an HR experience, probably. And then I got my coaching certification. So, I mean, I was really like dancing around art the whole time and not going fully into it. But then I ultimately started painting again. And that's when things started to shift for me.
And so why did you start painting again?
Truly, it's because I was sort of at this point where, going into work every day felt painful to me. It was really stressful. I was not happy. I was making more money than I'd ever made in my life. I got a promotion. I just wasn't fulfilled. I was tired. And I was working with a spiritual teacher. She's a dear friend. And she and I were chatting, and she said, you know what? Your gifts show up when you're young, right? Your gifts are always around you when you're little. You have these natural curiosities about the world, and there are answers in those curiosities. And so she said, what did you like? And for me, it was art, but she had to remind me about that. It was like I had forgotten about it. I kind of stuffed it way down. And when she mentioned art, it was like this light bulb went off, and I went, oh my gosh, I've spent my whole life trying to get back to this through various jobs and certifications and all things I was chasing in like the physical world. And when she said that, I started painting right away, instantly. And then I sort of started to connect that the color I was seeing around people was meant to come through in my artwork. And so I would see somebody and instantly go, oh, you're green, dark green, and gold. And then I would paint for them and say, this is your painting. And at the time, I didn't know that there were messages, there were symbols, there were things that were coming through in the painting. And then that they were getting something from it. They were feeling inspired by it, or they were feeling empowered by the messages. And that's when I started to kind of say, there's something bigger here that's not just about, the physical experience, but the spiritual experience. And I'm able to offer some sort of healing through that for people.
Which is very unusual. So I have a dear friend she became a friend after I coached her, right? And I won't go into all of the things that we overcame together, but art is how she started to express herself. And now she holds art classes, helping people get through their barriers through artwork, right? Oh, it's just so beautiful. And I did an exercise the other day. And so folks, do this. It was really amazing. So this was specific to cancer. It could be specific to anything that you're trying to overcome. But this, I wrote down 4 or 5 words or phrases that I associated with my experience. And they weren't all bad, I mean, some were. And then I free drew with my left hand, grabbing whatever color called to me, what that looked like, right? And when I was done, when I look at it, it looks like maybe a flower, but I think it as a pinwheel, right? Of different colors with blue, or it wasn't blue, it's more like magenta coming around it and through it, and yellows. So it wasn't all dark, there was dark in there. So this expression really helped me visually take a look at what was going on inside, right? And so you're tuning into people, right? So how did you take that first experience of realizing that you're making a connection with people, and what did you do to explore that and go deeper with it?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, when I first started painting again, I found myself stealing away moments from the day that I could just spend in art or spend in communion with God, because that's sort of, I think that's how I commune best with a higher powers, through my artwork. So I took a day off of work. My studio at the time was in our garage, and I just started painting the colors that I saw for friends. I was like, okay, I see light blue, peach, and white for you. And I would paint for someone. And as I was painting for this one particular friend, I started to cry. And that just felt like there was some sort of release there. I don't know if it was for me or for her, but she happened to be coming over and she was driving. She parked in front of the garage and she said, I don't know what just happened, but on my way over here, I just started to cry. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's so interesting. So I showed her her painting. We talked about what the colors meant for her. And this was years ago too. So where I was then is different than where I am today, because I've learned so much more about how this works for me and about how to share the messages for people too. But
Right.
at the time, it was really meaningful for her. And we kind of joke she's like the largest private collector in America because she has so many of my paintings, because they're kind of like, a snapshot of where you are in time. And so over the years, I've done many paintings for her that tell a story of where she was before and where she is now. And her transformation has been incredible. And I take no credit for any of that at all. She's done all of that work, and so many different teachers and experiences. But I like to think that my paintings sort of offer her, um, like a cushion, or like a something that she can look at each day, and it ministers to her spirit. So there's something really beautiful and deeply personal about those paintings for people.
Right. Um, so my ex painted on the side, even though he's sold his paintings in art galleries and so forth, he always considered it a side job. And I have some prints of his paintings and I have one original. And I would say that the original is probably the darkest,
Mm.
because the original expressed how he felt about us breaking up,
Oh, wow.
right? And he couldn't have it in his house anymore. So I
Hmm.
took it. And so
Hmm.
now I'm like, who's going to get that? He's not going to want it back. Does my son want, you know, a depiction of his mother and father breaking up? I mean, I don't
Right.
know,
Hmm.
where that goes. But for me, it was, for him, it was a way to release what he was feeling. And for me, it was a reflection of what I was living through
Mm.
at the time. So this is why people look at art and they get a different story, because you bring your own history to it. But when you hook up on the same wavelength as someone else, that's not your story you're bringing to the painting. You're
Right.
channeling their story. It's completely different,
It is completely different.
right? Yeah.
That's a great observation. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are pieces in the studio that I work on that are an expression of myself, or questions that I have, or just general observations about the world or the spiritual world. And those are, I think, I consider them like a commission for somebody I haven't met yet. Like there's somebody out there who will see it and go, oh, there's something in that painting for me. And I love to connect those. But you're right, there is something different when I sit down with somebody's energy and read where they are in their chakras, and then create a painting for them, because it's specifically and uniquely for them.
Mhm.
And it delivers really, I think, urgent and important messages about where they are, um, and how they can use those colors and those energies for healing, or just for empowerment, like we talked about.
Right. Well, healing to me is empowerment. That's what empowerment is all about, right? And learning how to get to the dark side with a feeling of safety and security,
Hmm.
right? Because it's not terrible.
Right.
It's just the opposite side of where you are. I'll give you an example, and I want to touch some more about what you're currently doing. Um, My son entered college. He went to one college, his girlfriend went to another. She calls him and they break up. Now I'm 3,000 miles away. He calls in tears, right? First of all, I'm feeling terrible not being there for him.
Yeah.
So I moved back to be closer to him. But in the conversation, I said, I'm really proud of you. And he said, why? I said, because if you didn't love deeply, you wouldn't be hurting deeply. And you will love again. I ask you to love as deeply as you did before. You take the risk of hurting this deeply, but that's a special gift.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, well, that doesn't bring me any comfort, Mom.
Oh.
But it's true. It's true,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you enter into life, and we all do, I'm the queen of having, the boundaries up, which really are walls, right? In order to safely enter the world. And if you're not vulnerable, or if I'm not vulnerable, I'm not going to speak for anybody else. If I'm not vulnerable, then I miss the opportunity of an amazing relationship, right? Or of hearing what you have to say.
Mm-hmm.
Because if
Yeah,
that wall is up, I'm not hearing you at all,
that's right.
right?
Yeah.
Right. So how did you take the leap from a good paying job in HR
Mm-hmm.
to moving out of the garage into your own studio?
um, there are times where I look back and go, I really can't believe that you did that. I think because I've been working since I was like 14 years old, and getting little jobs here and there, but instantly out of college, moved right into a corporate job. I don't think I ever gave myself space to really feel my way into art. And I have no regrets, right? Like I don't look back and say, I wish I had done this because I think God uses what we experience in really beautiful ways. So all of the things that I learned when I was in college and corporate and in working at banks and working in marketing and working all of that I use today. And I'm so glad that I have that background because a lot of people who have just moved right into the artist track are missing that really important business side of things. But really for me, it was one of those middle of the night decisions where I had gotten promoted on this day. I got a big raise, I got promoted. I also got an email about doing my first show, and they came on the same day.
We are given choices and we have free will.
And it was so funny because I remembered the feeling that ran through me when I got the email about the show was so uplifting. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. And when I got the promotion, it was like, cool, that's great. More, more of the same, and the money is always great and all of that. But at the same time, I didn't think that I was going to survive staying there. The feeling that I had every day when I drove into the parking lot, I had to listen to like M&Ms. I had to listen to Eminem to pump myself up in the morning. I was getting into the office and I was like meditating. I was like, oh dear, please help me get through this day. And so it was really a decision about, do I really want to go through life feeling this way all the time? Or do I really want to just have faith and um, take a leap and really see what's possible? And I did. And I, spoke to my husband about it and we were kind of like, okay, let's figure this out. Maybe you can resign but work through the end of the year, or you can, we'll figure something out with that. But I went in to talk to my boss and I didn't even get the words out about I'll finish through the year or help you on board or what have you. Next thing I know, I'm walking down the hallway and we're telling my team. And 2 weeks later, I didn't have that job anymore. So it was really like the minute that I decided, the universe was like, okay, ready, go. So,
Yeah, be careful what we ask for, right?
right.
But I also believe that I'm getting prepared. Like little things are happening and I don't realize that I'm getting prepared. So
Mhm.
that when it drops, and I want to say, I don't know if you've seen, what is it, 2001 Space Odyssey, that the metal thing that goes whoop, whoop,
Yep.
right, that comes down. It's like that is a major shift in mankind. That's a major shift in your life. That's how it happens for me,
Mhm.
right? I'm like, oh, is it ever going to happen? I really would like it to happen. And then and I realized that the little things that were happening before were preparing me for it.
Yes. Yep.
Right. Right. Um, so if you're not ready, you don't even recognize that the gift is there.
Right.
Right. So if you weren't ready, I don't think you would have gotten that email. Right. So tell me about your first showing and then what you did after that.
Mhm. My first show was actually at, it was called Anchor Bar in downtown Raleigh, and it was a First Friday event. So it's one of those, I don't know if you have First Fridays by you, but the first Friday of the month, there are art galleries and restaurants and things that are open, and it's a chance for people to come out and just see. But it's like a rotating art gallery. And so different artists move around to different venues. And so this was my very first one. And it was, I kind of was like, well, it's my first show, but it's in a bar, but it's also, so it was a little bit like, I think I questioned the purpose of it. And then, a lot of my friends were like, think about the bar being the best place for your work to be, right? 'Cause it's ministering to people who are there. And it doesn't matter where it is, it's still doing the work that it needs to do.
Right.
And I still have pictures from that night that pop up in my memories. And I look back and go, oh my gosh, how cool was that? I remember after that show ended, I went out to dinner with some girlfriends, and I think I just cried at the table because I felt so excited, and I was also nervous, and being around people and having to talk about my work and share it publicly was intimidating, but it was one of those, like, bubbly feelings that you get where you're like, "I'm just so excited, I don't even know what to do with myself,"
Yes.
you know?
Isn't it awesome?
Yeah, it is. It's this effervescence in your energy that's just like, so it was awesome. It was awesome. And after that, it was sort of like, well, how do I get more of that? How do I get my next show? So
Right.
I sort of started trying to figure out, well, how do I apply to exhibit my work in more spaces? And how do I just sort of make people aware of what I do and what I offer? And it was sort of like a slow burn from there. Um, and still is. It still is, every day, every week is another round of applications and submitting your work for people. And it's kind of like a numbers game, and you've got to throw your hat in as many rings as you can. And you hope that some curator or judge somewhere sees it and says, that's interesting. I'd love to see more of that. And you just never know who's going to notice your work or feel inspired by what your messaging is around your work. So every day it's like, I hope somebody new finds me, or I hope that I can reach somebody with my messaging and try to be as authentic as possible around my messaging too.
Authenticity is so important. So I'm going to share. I'm feeling compelled to share this. So I was given some information yesterday. I'm like, well, what am I going to do with this information? Here we go.
Awesome. Awesome.
I, I have a friend, or he's becoming a friend, who is, let's just say, quite wealthy. And I would say he is a coach for people who are quite wealthy, right? So he knows how to take your business from 0 to, 8 figures. It's ridiculous. Um, and here's a piece of advice that he gives the first or second week. Create a 5-minute authentic spiel, only 5 minutes. And then every week you call 100 people and you're only taking 5 minutes of their time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But with an ask at the end, of course. One of his clients, and this is the story that he shared, and this is why I'm sharing it with you guys, said, I only got 2, hooked 2, if you will. And he's like, so you're going to focus on the 98 and not on the 2? Would you have had those 2 if you didn't make those calls? It says your focus is in the wrong place, right? And I think we all fall into that,
Yeah.
right? As entrepreneurs, we put so much effort, and we look at the result and go, it should be more than that, rather than look at the result and say, I didn't have this last week. This is awesome.
Yep.
Right? This is awesome. So so I think it's miraculous that you're doing what you're doing, that it's inspiring that you're doing what you're doing, and I think it's necessary. Because here's the deal, right? The people that I've been meeting are hungry to learn how to communicate with themselves,
Yes.
right? They don't know who they are at a God core level,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the other day I was doing something, and I'm still going through the treatments, and it hurts. And I'm like, yeah, the body hurts, but the soul never feels pain. Focus on your soul, Gail. This is going to be over soon.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as that happened, I was fine. I was able to relax.
Wow.
Yeah. Right. And so that's what I mean by people are looking for that. And I think you're offering that to them. That's where the release, that's where the tears are coming from.
Yeah.
Right. So, so how can people in this community get to know more about what you do? Because it is fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you for sharing that too. Because I think you're right. That's the majority of the people who come to me, I think, are looking for a way to connect with themselves again.
Right.
And a lot of the messaging that comes through in the spirit portrait is how color can help them with that. That's beautiful. I love that.
I love it.
I'm always sharing colorful videos and stories on my Instagram account, and that's at Heather Eck Artist. And then on my website, I've got a couple of freebies for folks, including a 15-minute free session with me where we can kind of talk about color at a surface level, and I'll share a little bit of the color that I see for you too. And that's at heathereck.com/thank you.
That would be fantastic, and folks, I encourage you to reach out. I will tell you, I've not had a session with you, but I think I'm going to. I've had sessions with people who can read auras. And for me, with one particular woman, we did my aura every week because it was changing so quickly. We wanted to see the progression of what was going on. And that was pre-cancer. Now, about a month ago, she said, well, your aura has been muddy. I want to connect with her because I don't think it is anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's really important to understand. If your aura or your colors are coming through a certain way, then you're showing up a certain way. And there's no judgment with that. It's just knowing what's going on in your life now and what do you need to focus on. And it's that simple. So you're helping people become self-aware, which I think is amazing.
I love that. Thank you. You said it so beautifully.
So when you get this recording, you can use this as for a marketing copy. I don't care.
I appreciate it.
And so
thank you.
Everybody, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Empowering Process podcast. I think I might actually, Heather and I will talk about maybe doing an event with a couple of people and have her give an example of what she does for you. I don't know. It just came to me. We'll see. But if this inspired you, give us a thumbs up. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. If you know someone who could benefit from this, absolutely share it out. And as always, subscribe so you know when the next episode is coming out. Thank you so much. And Heather, thank you so much for sharing this time with us.
Thank you so much, Gail.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Empowering Process podcast. Be sure to visit Gail at gailcraft.com to learn more about how she serves thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and goal seekers. And remember, if you like this broadcast, be sure to share and subscribe so you don't miss an episode.